So, a little bit earlier we played this game, right? Where you're down here, we're all kind of at the same starting point, and we had everything from some people not even making it halfway. And then there were others who went all the way to the wall. And then some who got pretty close. And then some who went barely over. Some who went way too far. Some, when you rolled the ball, it went like way on this side of the tape or way off to that side of the tape. And so it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And it's this idea where no matter how hard you tried, because it looked like everybody was trying. I mean, yeah, you were only playing for like a Snapple or something, but you still, there's this sense of competition in us, right? Where we're just like, I want to try my hardest, right? I want to give it my best. And so no matter how hard you tried, there was still the distinct possibility, especially that first round, of just going way too far. You just had no idea how to do this. You didn't know how much muscle to use and that kind of a thing. And last week, we talked about the godly perspective of dating and making the decisions of who you're going to date, what it means to date, when to date. You know, we talked about some of those things. And just to kind of recap, the important things about dating to look at in your life is make the important thing the important thing. The important thing is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. That has to be the important thing. As soon as a guy or a girl becomes the important thing, we miss it. So make the important thing the important thing. Two halves don't equal a whole. This idea that if you feel like, oh, well, I'll feel better about myself if somebody else loves me, it won't work. Especially because they're probably not whole either. And remember, we talked about like the shoe. You have a left shoe. Just because you find somebody with a right shoe, you're both still missing a shoe. Okay, it doesn't solve your problem. So the idea of a relationship fixing who you are is totally false. And yet people get married for that reason, hoping that they'll be made whole through this relationship. Number 3, like-minded is key. And we're going to talk some more about this tonight. But that idea of, is the person that you're dating, this person that you like, who may be hot stuff, who may be super cool, super athletic, super whatever, do they consider the same important things your important things? Meaning, is a relationship with Jesus as important to them as it is for you? Is your relationship with Jesus is as important to you as it is to them? Because if you're not like-minded, if you're not both on this journey toward Jesus, eventually the likelihood is neither of you will be on this journey toward Jesus because the fight is just too hard. Number 4, decide now what you demand in a relationship. Because if you wait till you're in a relationship to decide what's important to you and what you want, too late. Because once you give your heart, it's really hard to take it back. And you're going to hear me say that several more times. Once you give your heart, it's really hard to take it back. You need to decide now, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you're like, this is the kind of person that I will date because this is the kind of person that I'll marry. And the reality is you don't know who you're going to fall in love with. So if you're just dating recreationally, you don't know which one of these people you're going to end up falling for. And if they are not to the standard that you have decided ahead of time, you'll go for anything. Number 5, later is greater. Dating later is better. And I'll just say that straight out. Now, if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend right now, it doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you stupid, doesn't make you ignorant. But later is better because the longer you date someone, the longer you're going to have self-control, the longer you're going to have accountability, the longer you are going to have to maintain a relationship of purity. And we're going to talk some more about that tonight too. But that is tough. And if you begin dating at 14, 15, 16 years old, where the possibility of marriage is way down the road, it just means that that's going to be a much more difficult road. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but That's why the delaying of beginning to date, there's nothing wrong with that. Dating later, it means that you're going to be able to focus on who God has made you to be and other relationships for longer. And then the last one, dating only adds the physical element to a relationship. You can bond with someone emotionally, you can bond with someone spiritually, you can bond with someone relationally without ever being physical, without ever being boyfriend and girlfriend. So what people who decide to be boyfriend and girlfriend are saying is, we want our relationship to be physical. We want to be able to hold hands and other people not go, why are they holding hands? They're not boyfriend and girlfriend. So you become boyfriend and girlfriend. You want to kiss. And kissing buddies it can be a little weird. So, all right, we're going to start dating, so kissing's not weird. But you don't need it to grow close to somebody, and a lot of times the physical element ends up keeping you from growing together relationally, spiritually, and emotionally. Because the physical stuff feels pretty good. And so that becomes the emphasis. That becomes the thing that you want. So I want you to do something for me. As we continue, I want you to tell me whether the following things are not intimate, semi-intimate, or semi-intimate, or intimate. Okay? Not intimate, semi-intimate, or intimate. All right? Holding hands. Yeah, semi-intimate. I mean, you don't know somebody, walk up to somebody at Victoria Gardens and be like, hey. They're going to be like, yeah, not okay. All right, that's a semi-intimate kind of a thing. What about touching someone's face?
Depends. What if you like punching them?
in a gentle kind of way. Touching somebody's face. You touch people's faces all the time? They actually say, they've done studies about people's brains and how they respond to different kinds of things, that when someone touches your face, it registers in your brain as one of the most intimate things you could do with a person. Just think about it. Imagine.
Touching somebody's face with your lips, then it's like, that
would be it. But imagine if I walked up to any of you, okay, anyway, and I know some of you better than others, but if I just walked up to you, even if I know you, and I were to just go, that would feel pretty intimate, right? Not necessarily sexual. It's just very intimate. It's a very personal thing. I can touch your face? I'm good for now, but...
What happens if a blind person comes up to you and touches your face and you don't even know him?
Wouldn't that be a really intimate thing, though? I mean, imagine that.
What are you doing?
That's what I mean. It's not necessarily sexual, but it's very intimate, right? How about... Man, this thing's driving me crazy. Carlo and his elfin ear. How about a discussion about baseball? Yeah, get a Dodgers fan and a Giants fan talking about it. It's going to be intimate. But, okay, probably not very intimate, right? How about kissing?
No comment. Intimate.
Okay, so we need some clarification. All right, so basically there are 3 kinds of kissing, and you may want to write this down for future reference. 3 kinds of kisses, okay? The first kind of kiss... You could picture it like this. Peaches. Right? Just peaches, right? The second kind of kiss is more like prunes. Right? So you got peaches, you got prunes, and then you have alfalfa, right? So basically 3 kinds of kissing. You got peaches, prunes, and alfalfa, right? That basically covers it. So, kissing, intimate, semi-intimate, not intimate. Some say not intimate. Some, very. All right.
Do you say alfalfa while you kiss your wife?
Huh?
Do you actually say it while you kiss your wife?
Oh, well, that's how you get the technique down. Yeah, once you become professional at it, you don't have to use the. But when you get started, you're gonna. So, how about a hug? Semi intimate. Even, again, not just a sexual kind of a thing, but a hug. I mean, you're embracing. You're getting close to somebody. How about intercourse? Right. He just said intercourse in church. Sexual intercourse, yes. Intimate, okay. For some, they believe that, yeah. What about a discussion about your hopes and dreams?
Intimate. Everyone discusses that.
Okay, that can be intimate, huh? A discussion about your hopes and dreams. Intimate, semi, okay. Okay, on one of the most common questions that I get asked, and that a lot of people probably have on their mind when it comes to their relationships or future relationships, is how far is too far? When you think about a dating relationship, and the possibility of falling in love and that kind of a thing. That idea of wanting to know, well, how far is too far? So let me ask you, give me some thoughts on what you believe is too far in a dating relationship, or how far can you go in a dating relationship before crossing a line? And I'll just leave it at that. Give me some ideas. How far is too far?
Stabbing them.
Okay.
Murdering them.
36 kilometers.
Okay.
Stabbing them.
How far? Not going to be inappropriate. Don't be vulgar, but
Kissing.
kissing is too far?
No, saying I love you before, like, premaritally, that's too far.
Okay, saying I love you. But physically, how far is too far? Moving in together, why?
That's like
What are they probably doing if they're living together?
living together.
Okay, let's all do this together. You ready? Ready? I want you to say that. I want you to repeat this after me. The word sex is okay. Say it. The word sex is okay. Say this with me. God made sex. And sex is good. Okay, we all good? We all good? It's okay to say sex. It's okay. How? So Alyssa, yeah, moving in together, but more of the reason they're living together, the things that they're doing living together.
Making breakfast together.
Okay, what it could lead to? Sure. What else? What's too far? Sex? Okay. What else? Anything else? Getting naked? Okay. What else? Taking a shower together? Okay.
Well, it's kind of hard because you don't know what kind of couple they are, so kissing could lead to sex.
Okay. So maybe kissing is too far? Okay. Having kids? Not so much the having kids, but the making of the kids is the issue.
Pregnant before you get your high school diploma.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Or at any point? Yeah. What do you base that opinion on? See, some of you said kissing, some of you said sex, some of you said taking a shower together, getting naked. What's that based on? The Bible? The Bible says don't take a shower together? It says don't have sex before marriage, but what about the other stuff? What? Stay pure. Okay.
Don't put yourself in a compromising position.
Okay. Okay. So we play how far can I go all the time, right? In all kinds of things. We look at it and we go like, hey, how fast can I go? We want to see, like, we want to check it out. We want to see how high we can go, right? Or how close to the edge can I get? You ever been to like the Grand Canyon or something? Nobody stands 50 feet from the edge. There's always like people, and some are willing to go farther than others, but there's always the, oh my gosh, right? We want to go to the edge. We want to see how far we can go. We do that in our lives all the time. And a lot of times we do that physically as well. We ask that question, how far can I go? And we ask how far, we want to know because we want permission. We ask, how far is too far? Just give me a line and I won't cross it, is what we think, right? Give me a boundary and I'll stay within that boundary. It won't be a problem. And so we ask the question, how far is too far? And we get a variety of answers. You go out and pull people on the street, you're going to get a variety of answers. Some people will go, nothing's too far. Do whatever you want, whenever you want. Doesn't matter. Others are going to say, dating's too far. You shouldn't have a relationship with the opposite sex at all. That's not good, right? But here's the problem, and this is one of the first blanks on your outline. How far is too far makes sex a game. It makes it this thing where we go, all right, I want to see how far I can get, and I want to push boundaries. And it's sort of like this.
Oh no, you got to go.
Okay, so we go, I want to be able to go as far as I can. All right? And what it does, what that question does, is it says, okay, I want to try and get as close as I possibly can, as long as I can stand it, because I don't want to get burned, right? So we're willing to go as far as we can. And what that does is we're saying to ourselves, well, I'm not getting third-degree burns on my hand, so therefore it must be okay. But right here, is there still damage being done? Yeah. There is. It may not be third-degree burns right now, but right here, hair is being singed off my hand. Layers of skin are being burned. At some point, I'm going to develop a blister. That blister will turn into a callus, and all kinds of damage is going to happen to my hand if I'm trying to find out how close and how far I can go. And we decide that we want to try and do that physically as well. And it makes sex a game. It makes sex one of these things. It makes physical intimacy one of these things where we're not, the only thing we're focused on is how far we can go. And we want to push that limit. We want to get as far as we can because, hey, it feels good and it's fun. But we don't want to have to pay the ultimate price. Yep. And so we ask the question, how far is too far? Instead, what I want to suggest to you, what I believe is biblical and what I believe God set up in the way we were designed to give you life, we need to be asking this question. How can I set up boundaries so I don't go too far? What is the focus of this question? How far is too far? What's the focus? Or what's the what are we trying to find out? Am I asking that wrong? What are we wanting to know in how far is too far? How far I can go, right? This says I want to go as far as I can. This question, how can I set up boundaries so I don't go too far? What is the focus of this question? How do I keep from going too far? This question is how do I go as far as I can? This question is how do I keep from going too far? This is the question we ought to be asking. In your relationships or future relationships, are you going to establish boundaries that will let you go as far as you can? Or are you going to set up boundaries that will keep you from ever going too far? that will keep you from taking a step in your relationship that you shouldn't be taking, a step in your relationship that will cause damage, either emotionally or physically? Are you going to set up boundaries that go, look, this is going to set me up to receive life, not just to receive sex. This will set me up to receive a deep, intimate relationship with somebody without the things that can cause so much grief and harm when I've connected with somebody at such an intimate level. How do we set up boundaries that keep us from going too far? Now, unfortunately, the Bible doesn't have a verse in 2 Thessalonians that says, "Thou shalt not kisseth with thy tongue on the palate of another, nor shall thy lean so hard against thy affectioned one that thy nearly go through the wall on which they leaneth." There's no verse in that which tells us, hey, this is exactly how far to go, right? How far is too far makes us draw lines that we can blur. Because I guarantee, because I've had these conversations with people who go, how far is too far? And they say, oh, well, kissing's too far. We shouldn't kiss. And then they get into a relationship. Person seems nice enough. They're established. Oh, they've been hanging out for quite a while now. And they start kissing. And the kissing becomes making out. And if someone were to go to them and go, wait a minute, wait. I thought you said kissing was too far. Oh, well, I made that line, that was too far 3 months ago because I hardly knew the person. Now I'm much more mature. Now I know who I am and I know who Ricardo is. And so now our line gets to be moved. And so now how far is too far? Well, now, not going to let him, touch me or anything. Like, okay. And then, they keep dating and this person is just really special and they want to somehow convey their love. And now they take these steps farther and farther. Well, wait a minute. I thought you said you weren't. Well, yeah, but we just have such a deep connection. See the problem? How far is too far? We just kind of get to blur these lines rather than going, I'm going to set up boundaries that will prevent me from ever getting to that point because I want life in my relationship. A couple of Sundays ago, we talked about why is God so strict about sex? Okay, and that was kind of a tricky topic with 11-year-old junior hires in the room. There's like, okay, how do I say this? But I just want to share with you guys, again, that intimacy of sex, the way that God designed sex is meant to be two people becoming one. The way that God designed a penis to go into a vagina is the essence. It's okay. Is the essence of two people becoming one flesh. It is meant to be intimate. It is meant to be so special. He could have made it so we just rubbed noses together, but he didn't. He's like, no, I want more intimate than that. He could have made it holding hands. He goes, no, I want it more intimate than that. Well, how intimate, God? Intercourse. That's the way he designed it. That's how special it is. That two people become one flesh. And God's design for that is life. God's design for that is wholeness and unity between two people. And when that unity is ripped apart because the two people decided, oh, we're not compatible. When those two people decide, oh, well, what? It was just supposed to be recreational. There's even a movie with, I think it's Justin Timberlake in it, No Strings Attached. What a joke. But that's the mindset that people have. And even in that movie, the lesson that they learn is really hard. That they realize, wow, we are bonded. Even though we're friends and we thought we could just do this recreationally, we are bonded now. Scientific studies have shown that a woman's body actually carries and holds on to some of the man's DNA after they've had sex. They actually carry it with them. Like you can't get rid of it. It's now part of their internal organs and things, reproductive system, that man's DNA is still part of you. You don't get to just separate it. You don't get to just treat it recreationally. Sex is an intimate thing. God created it that way. It's intentional. It's supposed to be a big deal. And yet we blur these lines and we decide, oh, well, I don't know. How far is too far? How far can I go? Because I want to go right to that edge, but I don't want to get hurt. And we all know people who have been hurt. We all know people who have stepped over that line. Maybe you have. And the good news is there is redemption and there is forgiveness and reconciliation. You are not lost. It is not too late for you. It is not too late to start over. That God still has a plan and a design for every single one of you. God still has a plan and a design for me in my marriage. Because he made sex that important and that powerful and that intimate. So tonight I want to challenge you to take some very deliberate steps. Okay, when it comes to making boundaries for your physical relationships. Now, here's the definition of boundary. A line that marks the limit of, an area. A line that marks the limit of an area, a dividing line. A boundary is something that's like, it stops here. It's not iffy. It's not, one day it's here, one day it's there. A boundary, and a true boundary is a limit. It says it stops here. It's a dividing line. This is what separates this from this. All right? And if you don't have boundaries in your life, you'll wander all over the place. You'll kind of just go, I don't ever know. And you'll keep getting hurt and you'll keep wondering why. Boundaries for your heart and your mind. Many of the physical temptations and the struggles that we suffer are things that we see, things that we experience, things that we take in, that we observe. It may be in a movie. It may be a guy or a girl in your biology class. It may be in pornography. It may be in things you see around your house. It may be things you see around that your friends are doing. But so much of the stuff that can create so much struggle is in stuff that we observe, stuff that we take in. And what you allow into your mind will eventually make its way into your heart. So guys, I'm telling you, and when I say guys, I'm saying generically, guys, the stuff that you look at, the things that you think about, the things that you sort of just ponder in your mind, make their way into your heart and will impact the kinds of boundaries that you'll set, will impact the kinds of relationships that you'll have. And so there need to be boundaries on the things that you are willing to look at and observe. I remember how grown up I felt when I finally could see a rated R movie. I felt so grown up and mature and like, and yet there have been so many times in my life. Sometimes I've succeeded and I've turned it off. And there have been other times I've been an utter collapse and I just end up sitting there watching it. And whether it's sexual or language or whatever it is, the things that we see, the things that we take in impact us. And the stuff that goes from our brain to our heart is so powerful that Jesus said this: you have heard the command that says don't commit adultery. And probably most people would be like, yeah, don't commit adultery. I'm never going to commit adultery. Jesus goes way off the end here. He goes, but I say anyone who even looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. From brain to heart. What I'm looking at doesn't just stay with something that I look at and it's kind of something I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of nice. It ends up going to my heart and it ends up twisting things in my heart. It ends up becoming something more in my heart. And there is a progression to everything. And a progression typically goes like this. I like it. You see something, you're like, me, I like it, yes. To, you know what? I want that. It's not enough for me to just enjoy the sight of the 7-Eleven on the corner that has Slurpees inside and sounds so good. I want what's inside there. Then it becomes, I need it. Like, this is no longer a thing of, whatever, it doesn't make. Now I need it. And it can become, you owe it to me. And in the extreme, it becomes, forget it, never mind, I'll take it. I'll take it from you. And there's violation, and there's abuse, and there's hurt. And so many of the things that create so much hurt and damage began with something that somebody saw, or something that somebody heard, or a lie that they believed that went from their brain to their heart, because they had no boundaries. And so they just continued to explore, and the progression got greater and greater and greater. So the things that we don't think are any big deals, like, who cares? It was a good movie. Yeah, there were some naked people in it, whatever. It'll go from your head to your heart. It will. Oh, what's the big deal? It was just a little bit of porn. It'll go from your head to your heart. And suddenly the way that you view women, the way that you view men is tweaked. And you go from I like to I want to I need to you owe to I'll take. And it's a dangerous progression. And porn is one of the most obvious kinds of things where we have seen this progression, and they have done all kinds of scientific studies that prove this is not a religion thing. This is not, the religious people are against porn. Non-religious scientists and non-religious people are going, porn is bad. And just so you know, porn is not just a guy thing. All kinds, huge percentage of women are addicted to porn. So it's not just a guy thing, all guys are perverts and it. No. I like what I see, I want, I need, you owe, I'll take. And pornography is one of those things where the hook of pornography is it leaves you needing more. You always need more. You see a picture, you want to see another picture. Pretty soon a picture's not enough. Now you want to see that picture move. So you start looking at GIFs or movies or late night on Skinamax or whatever it is. And it always leaves you wanting more. And it's a trap. And there's an addiction to it. They have scientifically shown that the brain, when observing pornography, the synapses in the brain fire the same way they do when a person's on heroin. Heroin! Pornography! Heroin. If I were to stand up here and go, hey, who wants a hit of heroin? Hopefully, nobody would want it. But if I were to stand up here and go, hey, who wants to see a picture of a naked lady? Inside, there's probably a bunch. Or a naked guy, there's probably a bunch who would be like, yeah, I wouldn't turn my head away. Heroin does the same thing to your brain that pornography does. Ruth.
Can I just tell you guys one more thing, too, that is super important to know? 20-year-old boys are now having to get on Viagra because it's never enough, and their girls can't compete with what you're seeing in porn. And so it does affect you later in life. You go to get married, and your wife won't measure up to what you have put in your eyes that go to your heart. You can want to love your wife and desire her, but what porn does is it desensitizes you, and then you have to have more to get that same reaction. So very young men are having to take drugs to be able to perform for their wives someday, and that's getting really scary. So I had to say that because it's that serious.
Yeah.
It can mess you up that bad.
And what's changed in your generation is the ability to see pornographic images. Me growing up, I'd have to go to a 7-Eleven and buy a Playboy. I'd have to go get a magazine. There was nowhere else to see it. And so it was really limited. It was like, I don't think I ever saw pornography because it would have to be in print. Now, the availability of it, you've all got it in your pocket. And so, except for Anna, because hers broke.
Yeah.
But
Good.
it is serious stuff. And we're going to talk some more about this next week too. But what boundaries do you need to set to be held accountable in order to keep your mind pure? Guys, this is a real thing. Like, what real tangible boundaries do you need to set? And I don't know what you're struggling with. Maybe porn is an issue for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe the movies you watch are an issue for you. Maybe they're not. I don't know where you're at. But what do you have to do to keep your mind pure? What boundaries, what lines, dividing lines of I will not cross this do you need to set? Maybe for some of you, it means you leave your phone on the kitchen table when you go to bed, so you're not alone in your room with your phone. Maybe it means taking the computer out of your room or not sitting and doing homework in the privacy of your room with a computer where it's available. I don't know what you need to do. But guys, there need to be boundaries because the stuff that goes into your brain will make its way to your heart and it'll change everything. We have to have boundaries for these things. And Paul tells us in Romans 13, says this, because we belong to the day, we must live decent lives for all to see. Don't participate in the darkness of wild parties and drunkenness, or in sexual promiscuity and immoral living, or in quarreling and jealousy. And maybe some of you have drawn that list like, I'm not going to be involved in orgies. That's ridiculous. But maybe you haven't had a boundary, and you've kind of been wandering all over. Look at this, verse 14. Instead, clothe yourselves with the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ. And don't even let yourself think about ways to indulge your evil desires. Guys, some of the battle that we fight that we end up losing is because we just mull these things over in our head. How far can I go? How far can I go? How much of this show can I watch? How much of this movie can I see? How late do I have to stay up before the good stuff comes on cable? Don't even think about ways to indulge those desires. Don't even think about it. Boundaries for who you date. If you're in a relationship with Christ and Christ is the priority in your life, then you should not even consider dating someone where that is not true for them. I'll just say it straight out. You shouldn't, if Christ is really the priority in your life, you should not even consider, no matter how hot he is, no matter how beautiful or talented she is, you should not even consider dating someone where Christ is not their priority, because it is so easy for that priority to change in you. It can happen so quickly. And that you're both on that journey where Christ is the center will have a huge impact on the boundaries that you set. It's going to be a lot harder to set boundaries when the person that you're trying to set boundaries thinks you're ridiculous. But they think that's silly. Oh, you're being religious. Oh, what's the big deal? We're just making out. What? It's going to be a lot harder. You should not even consider dating somebody where their pursuit of Jesus or their non-negotiables aren't in alignment with yours. That should be a boundary you set for somebody that you date. And we looked at this verse last week. Don't team up with those who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? What harmony can there be between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be a partner with an unbeliever? It doesn't work. And the reality of it all is that missionary dating has a very low success rate. So if you're in a relationship and you're like, no, I'll change him, I'll bet you won't. In fact, by you dating him, you're actually showing him that this whole Jesus thing really isn't all that important. So you're actually doing the opposite of what you think you're doing. Missionary dating has a very low success rate, but it is a huge risk. There is huge risk associated with it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't care for that person. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try and help them see that a relationship with Christ needs to be the most important, but you don't need to be his girlfriend to do that. You don't need to be her boyfriend to do that. Boundaries for what you do. We're going to blast through some of this stuff. We already talked that we need to change our question from how far is too far to how do I set up boundaries so I don't go too far, right? But if you're in a relationship or one day will be, what are the boundaries you should set up? What are the physical boundaries you should... In setting boundaries, here's some clues. 1, the goal is not just avoiding intercourse. The goal should not just be, don't have sex. We are called, and Paige said it earlier, we are called to be pure in heart. We are called to have pure hearts, not just remain virgins. So when you're setting up boundaries for what you're going to do, it's not just, oh, well, at least we didn't have sex. We were mostly naked, but at least we didn't have sex. It's not pure. We are called to be pure in heart. And here is the boundary and what we are called to do. In Timothy, run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts. That's quite a sentence, right? Run from anything that stimulates youthful lust. Instead, pure, righteous living, faithfulness, love, and peace are the things that we should be pursuing. So, this idea of the question of how do I keep from going too far? Run from anything that stimulates youthful lust. So that may mean, and she said it earlier, that may mean holding hands is too far for you. If holding hands brings you to a place where you're like, I want more. If hugging and snuggling makes you go, I'd rather be doing a different kind of special hug, then snuggling is too far. If making out, if you can't keep your hands out of her shirt when you're making out's too far. Run from anything that stimulates youthful lust. And that youthful lust stuff applies to me too. Run from it. Don't think you can overcome it. Oh, it's not that big a deal. Run from it. Don't have anything to do with it. Because the goal is not just to avoid sex. Sexting is not pure at heart. Oral sex is not pure at heart. And for those who argue like, oh, well, that's not really sex. I guarantee you, if you asked any married person if oral sex is sex, they will tell you it's sex. Right? Touching private areas is not sexually pure. God designed this stuff for marriage between a man and a woman, between a husband and his wife. That is when this stuff brings life. That is when this stuff is intimate and one flesh, and it's a good thing that brings life. Any earlier than that, and it brings death. It brings death and hurt and damage and calamity and disease. And it's not pure. Second thing, declare your boundaries. Right up front, the person you're in a relationship with should know your boundaries. Right up front. You start dating somebody, you start hanging out with somebody, there needs to be a conversation that starts this way. You know what? You need to know right away that I am committed to. Now, you may be going, that would be an awkward conversation. It's like, I'm just kind of getting to know the guy. I'm just kind of I want this girl to like me. I don't want right up front to be like, here's the boundaries, here's the rules, right? So you may be going, oh, well, that's kind of awkward, but I guarantee it's not anywhere near as awkward as you trying to figure out how to get out of a compromising situation. When you know you're crossing lines, or you really want this guy to like you, or you want this girl to think that you're a real man and you're all grown up or whatever, and you know, and that conviction in your heart of going, this is not pure, this is not okay, and you trying to figure out how to get out of this situation with your dignity still intact, having a conversation up front going, this is what I'm committed to, is not nearly as awkward as that. The person you're dating should know what your boundaries are and where you stand. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend should know what you are committed to. They should know the lines that you will not cross, right? And if you're afraid to have that conversation with your boyfriend or a girlfriend, then you should not be in a relationship. If you are embarrassed to say, I'm not going to do this, we are not going to do this or go here or be here, If you're too embarrassed or awkward to have that conversation, you don't belong in a relationship. You're not ready for a relationship. If the person that you give those boundaries and say, hey, here are the boundaries, if they think that's silly, if they're going to try and talk you into going a little bit further or what's the big deal, you do not belong in a relationship with that person. If you think that that person's going to mock you and you're embarrassed because, oh, well, I know this is silly, but you do not belong in a relationship with that person. You need to get out of it. Run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts. Instead, pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, and peace. Here's what we should be doing. Enjoy the companionship of those who call on the Lord with pure hearts. Those are the people. That's the person you should be dating. Someone who calls on the Lord with a pure heart. Someone who goes, when you say, here are my boundaries, and they go, no problem. Deal. Good. Thank you. Please hold me accountable to those boundaries too. Don't you want to be in that kind of relationship? Isn't that so much better and so much easier when you're aligned and you're going, yes, thank you. You guys, okay. Here's the third one. We got avoid compromising situations. You guys, in high school, I was an absolute train wreck at this. Avoiding compromising situations. When I was dating in high school, you know when your parents are going to be home. She knows when her parents are going to be home. And somehow I always found my way hanging out at her house when her parents weren't home. And man, I told you last week, there were more than one occasions of me running out of the house. And I believe it was the grace of God and the move of the Holy Spirit in my heart that I was able to, no. And that somehow when I got married, I was a virgin. It was the grace of God because I was a real knucklehead because I put myself in all kinds of compromising situations. Sometimes it wasn't even my fault. I was dating a girl we had dated for about 2 years. And this girl, I'd go running out of her house and be like, no, we really can't do this. No. And anyway, I was at her house. Her mom was home. We were hanging out in her room, just sitting, talking. Her mom walks down the hallway and walks by the door and goes, why don't I just give you guys some privacy? And closes the door. It wasn't just her that didn't have any boundaries. Where did she learn not to have boundaries?
Her mother.
Her mom, it wasn't any big deal. Her mom was just like, yeah, whatever. Avoid compromising situations. When I started dating Laura, it was the biggest relief when we had the conversation about we need to be accountable. We cannot go here. We cannot, and we decided we would not be alone. Now, you can look at that and go, no, that's getting a little extreme. It's really not. Being alone is a bad idea. It's always a bad idea. There is no reason for you to be alone other than to do things that you don't want to be doing in front of people. If you want to stay pure, don't be alone. And I'm telling you, it was a pain. It was a real bummer because I'd be hanging out at her house. Her family's there. We're hanging out. We're just like, sometimes I had just gotten there. I'd have to drive 25 minutes to get to her house. We're hanging out. Sometimes I just got there and her mom and dad would be like, well, we're going to go out to dinner. I just got here. And it could be so easy. Oh, we're just going to hang out here. Nope. We walked out the door with them and we had to go find something to do. Being alone is a bad idea. It's always a bad idea because you're not going to be doing anything other than things that you shouldn't be doing. So consider that. And again, it speaks to that's going to be impossible if you're not in a relationship with someone who has the same boundaries you do. It's so crucial. And boundaries aren't just limitations that you have for your life that are meant to take away your fun. You know, the boundaries are not just things, oh, you're not supposed to do anything that feels good, and that's not the purpose of the boundaries. The boundaries are to bring you life. The boundaries are to give you a pure relationship where you're not having to deal with guilt. You're not having to deal with shame. I have done premarital counseling with people who had sexual experience before this relationship that they were in. And the things that they were having to deal with, they would come back after they're married and go, I still feel like I'm doing something wrong. The husband would come and say, Jeff, can I talk to you? Am I supposed to feel sneaky when my wife and I are having sex? Should a husband have to feel sneaky when having sex with his wife? But when that is the emotion that you've put yourself through over and over and over again, it's a trained response. Can it be overcome? Can it be healed? Can the grace of God fix a marriage and bring wholeness in you? Absolutely. And that's the good news in all of this. Because again, if any of you are sitting here and you're like, I've done that, I've messed up, I've made a mistake, you are forgiven. You can be made whole. You can be redeemed, both in body and soul and mind. But what are the boundaries that you have for your life and your relationship? Set them now and make them known. Because we all need accountability in our life. And we all need boundaries. Otherwise, we're just kind of out there wandering around, doing whatever feels good. But in the wrong context, feels good is deadly. And it's not the plan and the design of God. Does that make sense? And it's hard, guys. I'm not sitting up here just going, come on, just do this. It's hard. It's really difficult. But it's a lot easier when you're in a relationship with someone that has those same boundaries and will set those same standards. And that's key. And when your pursuit of God is the focus, is the number one thing. Let's pray. Father God, you know every person in here. You know the mistakes. You know the victories. You know the things that go through our minds that, God, are making their way to our heart. And God, I pray that you would bring healing, that you would restore us. You would restore brokenness and hurt and loss. God, that you would help us to set boundaries, not that we're going to try and move or justify, but God, non-negotiables, things where we go, this is set because this is who you have called me to be. And God, my relationship with you is the most important thing. God, I pray for those in this room that are in relationships that purity would be the thing that they chase after. God, that a relationship with you would be the mutual thing of importance, that they would be unwilling to settle for anything less. So God, be with us in all that we do. Help us to set those boundaries and bring people into our life who will hold us accountable. That our relationships would be life-giving. In Jesus' name, amen.